I had barely finished screwing in the new deadbolt on my front door when I heard it. That sound, flip-flop slapping pavement like an angry penguin racing to a fish buffet. And sure enough, there she came. Carolyn Vance, self-appointed queen of the Willow Creek HOA, waving a rolled-up bylaw booklet like it was a royal scepter, and I was a peasant who'd forgotten to bow. Before we continue, tell us where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. You can't just change a lock. That's a direct violation of Community Code 42B. She screeched, but halfway through her scream, she stopped cold, her mouth shutting so fast I could almost hear a click. The reason? 10 feet behind me, sitting on my back deck in an old patio chair, was Sheriff Miller. Sunglasses on, coffee steaming, a newspaper folded neatly over his knee, and a grin that just screamed, "This is better than daytime television." Carolyn blinked, her mouth opened and closed like a confused fish, trying to decide if she was furious or about to flirt. It was too late. Miller gave a slow nod and said, "Nice lock, Leo. Sure looks secure." That morning wasn't supposed to be dramatic. I just finally got around to changing that lock after the old one seized up. But ever since Carolyn got re-elected HOA president by one single vote, which I suspect she cast for herself twice, she'd been acting like everyone's home was just an asset under community stewardship, which in Carolyn's speak meant stuff I get to control because I'm bored. She'd already let herself into my backyard twice, claiming she was doing surprise inspections. Once I came home to find a pamphlet wedged in my kitchen window screen, a place she could only reach with a key I never gave her. That's when I knew she had one of the old HOA duplicates. So I bought a heavy-duty deadbolt and installed it, but my 20-minute project just so happened to align with her weekly patrol. She came in hot, demanding I stop. Right when she was about to ramp up, Sheriff Miller leaned forward and said, real casual like, "Carolyn, are you seriously saying he needs HOA permission to change the lock on his own house, the one he pays for?" She tried to recover, smoothing her blouse like she was at a press conference. Well, technically, modifications to exterior access features require board review per Section 42B. But I cut her off, pulled out the latest bylaw printout. Section 42B was repealed, I said, August 2021. Here's the transcript. You even nodded when it passed. Her face tightened like she'd bitten into a lime. Then I dropped the real bomb. "Someone entered my home last week," I said. "Nothing was stolen, but things were moved. My neighbor's camera caught a guy going in with a key I never gave out. That's why I changed the lock, and I filed a report." Carolyn's face went pale. I don't know anything about that." "You're the one who maintained the key list, right?" I asked. "For emergency access only?" "That's not what happened," she stammered. "That's not what the footage shows," I said, "and I've got a copy. You want to see?" Miller stood up slowly. If someone used a key to enter his house without permission, and that key came from the HOA, that's potentially criminal. "You sure you don't want to change your story, Carolyn?" She didn't answer, just turned and stormed off, looking like a cartoon villain tripping on her own cape. I thought maybe that was it, but 4 hours later, I got an email from the HOA communications desk, aka Carolyn pretending to be official. The subject line, "Immediate violation, lock change without authorization." She still hadn't figured out I wasn't some clueless homeowner she could steamroll. I'd spent 2 weeks digging through HOA records and even spoke to Frank Garcia, the former HOA secretary who quit after accusing Carolyn of rewriting board decisions in private. Frank mailed me a flash drive. Inside were meeting recordings, email threads, and one juicy clip from 2021 where Carolyn herself said the words, "I suppose people should have the right to change their locks." I didn't go public just yet. I wanted to see how far she'd push. The next day, she taped a notice to my window about an emergency closed session board meeting to discuss acts of non-compliance. So I showed up anyway, just leaned against the bike rack out front. Through the glass, I could see her pacing. She sent out poor old Arthur, the soft-spoken folding chair guy. "Leo, this meeting's closed." "I'm not interrupting," I said, "just making sure transparency doesn't go out the window. Also, you might want to tell Carolyn I've got the repeal footage. Don't let her walk into it blind." That night, I got a text from Miller. She forgot to close the window. Heard everything. Got enough for a formal investigation. Hope you don't mind I hit record. Things escalated fast. More neighbors came forward. Stories poured in. Carolyn scolding kids for sidewalk chalk, digging up flower beds because the color scheme didn't match the seasonal aesthetic. So we held a little meeting, just folding chairs and truth. I played the lock video, showed them footage of Dylan, Carolyn's nephew, trying my shed door at 2 a.m. By the end of the night, we had 35% of the neighborhood signed on to a recall petition. Friday night, community center, standing room only. Carolyn stood stiff at the podium, trying to carry on. I raised my hand. "This isn't a comment," I said. "It's a motion. As per the HOA bylaws, I have a signed petition from over 1/3 of homeowners calling for an emergency recall vote." She tried to shut it down, called it mob rule, a witch hunt. But when Miller stood up from the back with a file in his hand and said, "I've submitted all of this to the county, unauthorized entry, falsified documents. You want to dispute it? I've got time." Her face went blank. The vote was called. 67% voted to remove her immediately. She walked out with Dylan in tow, not a word, just the sound of her heels clicking like a countdown to her collapse. But she wasn't done. 3 days later, I got a letter. She was suing me for harassment and emotional distress. I laughed, but then I got curious. What was she really hiding? That's when we found the hard drive, HOA budget archives. Inside, payments to a landscaping company, Vance Greenscaping, owned by her sister. Over $30,000 in 2 years. Another company for compliance audits, run by her nephew Dylan. Miller handed everything over to the Financial Crimes Division. Her lawsuit was tossed out without a hearing. Neighborhood morale soared. One morning, I saw her standing by her car just staring at the for sale sign in front of her old house. She didn't say anything, just looked at my porch, then got in and drove away. The next morning, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No name. Inside was a photo from last summer's barbecue, Carolyn laughing with a neighbor she'd eventually betray. On the back, in soft pen, it said, "Don't let it happen again." I pinned it next to the first violation she ever wrote me as a reminder. Sometimes all it takes is one lock to change everything. Now, I've got to ask you, do you think HOAs are about community or control? And what would you have done if someone used a key to enter your home without asking? Drop a comment. I'm curious to hear how far you'd go to take back your neighborhood.